What up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight video of the Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence fight. This was for the Undisputed Welterweight titles. As I said in my preview video to this fight, that this was the biggest fight that the sport of boxing can produce as of right now. And how this fight went, I would say it didn't live up to the competitive magnitude that this fight was hyped up to be. However, the winner of this fight, he did more than what was expected of him, and this definitely put the winner of the fight without any shadow of a doubt as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now. And before I give y'all a summary of what happened in the fight, I'm going to tell y'all the results first. Terence Crawford was able to win this fight and become the new undisputed welterweight champion. Now, this makes him the only male fighter in the modern era to become a two-time undisputed champion in two different weight classes. At super lightweight, he was a undisputed champion, and now at welterweight, he has all the titles as well, and he won in a very dominant, impressive performance. He won via 9th round TKO, and this was a outclassing, a clinic that Terence Bud Crawford put on in this fight. The fight that was, without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest and the most challenging fight of his career, or what was supposed to be at least. However, it wasn't competitive at all. I would say this was definitely the best performance of Terence Crawford's career, not only because he defeated a opponent that's on the caliber of a Errol Spence, but I would say because of how he fought this fight. It was just brilliant. And I had this fight score prior to the stoppage 7-1 in favor of Terence Crawford. I had to score 79-70. As I said, the stoppage occurred in the 9th round. And Terence Crawford, he scored 3 knockdowns prior to scoring the TKO victory. And the only round I had scored in favor of Errol Spence was the first round. And to sum up what happened in the fight, Errol Spence in the beginning round, he was establishing the jab. He was able to control the pace and as well as a distance where the fight was being fought at in the opening round. And I did say in my preview video that Errol Spence would want to pressure and work off of volume and have his work rate at a high level to diffuse Terence Crawford and his ability to catch fire and find his rhythm and get in tune with Errol Spence's rhythm and his pace and his work rate. And I did say what Terence Crawford would have to do is find a way to figure out how to get around the jab of Errol Spence, and he did that quite early in this fight. As I said, after the first round, it was all Terence Crawford. And I did say in my preview video that since Terence Crawford has built a reputation of being somewhat of a slow starter, as I said, he is a very smart fighter as Terence Crawford, and he takes his time being methodical, and he takes his time reading and trying to figure out his opponents and what their game plan is in the beginning rounds. And once he gets all that telegraphed, then he goes to work. And then I did say, because of that reason, Errol Spence will want to take advantage of that factor and get as many early rounds on his side, as many early rounds as possible. And he couldn't do that after the first round, because in the second round, Terence Crawford would catch Errol Spence with a flash knockdown. He caught him with a stiff jab. Terence Crawford, he has power in both hands. He's built up a reputation as being arguably, I would say, in my opinion, from my perspective, Terence Crawford is the best switch hitter in the sport currently, and he could fight from both southpaw and conventional, and he has power in both hands. He does carry, as I would say, the equal amount of power. To most experts, they would say that Terence Crawford carries more power in his right hand, and he did prove that with the fact that the jab of his was able to neutralize Errol Spence whenever Errol Spence was caught lunging in and was at a distance where Terence Crawford can land his punches. And as I said, Terence Crawford, from the beginning of this fight, he started standing at a southpaw stance, and he did not fight from a conventional stance throughout the whole fight. And then the power jab was a key factor to Terence Crawford's winning this fight, as well as his timing and his ability to catch Errol Spence with good counter shots, and his ability to read distance and being accurate and knowing where Errol Spence is going to attack from and when Errol Spence is going to attack from, and utilizing the angles and telegraphing Errol Spence's attacks and disrupting his flow in this fight. And Terence Crawford, the funny thing is, I did say in my preview video, if y'all haven't saw it yet, go check it out. I said Errol Spence, he will want to utilize the jab a lot in this fight to disrupt the rhythm of Terence Crawford and have Terence Crawford not be able to find his rhythm, to get in tune, to start going to work the way he did in this fight. And he would have to set up a high work rate in order for him to do that. However, it turned around in this fight. Terence Crawford would be the one that would utilize a jab, and that was a key way for Terence Crawford to score this 9th round TKO win over Errol Spence. And Errol Spence, he couldn't figure out the distance that he wanted the fight to be fought at. He was throwing the jab. That was really the only punch that Errol Spence was throwing frequently in this fight. It wasn't successful. It wasn't landing. Errol Spence has built up a reputation as being a very accurate puncher as well. However, when he couldn't figure out what distance to have this fight being fought at, he wasn't comfortable, unlike Terence Crawford was, and that's why he couldn't get in tune to set up his offense, because he follows up his whole offense and his whole fight game is based on establishing behind his jab. He builds his offense up with his jab, and he follows it up with combinations. And Errol Spence has, statistically speaking, has been known to be the most frequent combination puncher in the sport of boxing. I think he's behind Chocolatito for throwing the most combinations in a fight statistically. And Errol Spence couldn't set up any combos, couldn't follow up behind with any other punches, because his jab, which is the offense finder for him, wasn't successful, was not finding its mark at all. Terence Crawford, with his effective counter-punching and his sharp, accurate counter-punching, he was able to back Errol Spence up a lot in this fight. And Errol Spence, he was getting tagged up, and that obviously goes to show how flush and how effective those shots were from Terence Crawford, because Errol Spence, he, as I said, is a volume puncher, and he couldn't have effective volume in this fight for him to pressure and back Terence Crawford up. He couldn't even utilize his size advantage to have Terence Crawford back up. In fact, Terence Crawford, when he would pick Errol Spence apart and catch him with counter shots accurately and effectively, he would in fact back up Errol Spence instead of the other way around, which is the opposite of what Errol Spence and his corner wanted to happen. And as I said, after round one, it was all Terence Crawford. This was a very one-sided fight. As I said, the best win of his career on his resume. This is the most impressive win on his career. This was the most important fight of both fighters' career. And the way Terence Crawford performed, without a shadow of a doubt, the best performance of his career thus far versus the highest quality of opponent that he's fought thus far in his career. Mind y'all, Terence Crawford, his biggest criticism has been the fact that, he hasn't fought as many tough competition as Errol Spence has. And mind y'all, Terence Crawford, he started his career at lightweight, and when he was fighting at lightweight and when he was working with Top Rank, he couldn't fight the best quality opponents out there for him. And the same story goes for when he was undisputed champion at super lightweight, and the same story goes for when he moved up to welterweight. And when he was not a free agent, and I don't know what his promotional situation is looking like. I know that he stopped working with Top Rank after his fight with Sean Porter, and that was his last fight with Top Rank. And honestly, Sean Porter is the highest quality opponent that Terence Crawford has fought up until tonight. And the quality of the opponents, as I said, that Terence Crawford has fought throughout his career has been the criticism that he's been faced with the most when it comes to dealing with boxing fans and boxing critics. And Terence Crawford, when he moved up to welterweight, he fought Amir Khan, Kell Brook. Those fighters were well past their prime, and PBC had all the welterweights, all the top welterweights that is, fighting under their banner. That's why it was so hard for Terence Crawford to get a marquee matchup when he moved up to welterweight. And when he fought as super lightweight, he fought Jeff Horn, who got a victory over Manny Pacquiao, a controversial victory that is. And Jeff Horn isn't a high caliber level fighter either, and he fought a fighter that knocked out Amir Khan early in his career, and that fighter isn't on the same level or the caliber of any of the top fighters that Errol Spence has fought, or I would say is even anywhere close to the level of Sean Porter or a Errol Spence. And I would say Kell Brook and Amir Khan, when it comes to achievements, even though the fighter that got a knockout win over Amir Khan, I'm talking about Brettis Prescott, didn't achieve the same amount of achievements as Amir Khan has had in this sport of professional boxing. And as I said, Terence Crawford, this definitely makes him the top fighter pound for pound. He, as I said, is the only male fighter in the modern era to become two-time undisputed champion in 2 different weight classes. And the way he won in this fight was an emphatic fashion. And they do have a rematch clause. They did say in the post-fight interview, the post-fight interviewer asked both fighters would they be interested in having yet another fight. And Terence Crawford said he has no problem with it. And Errol Spence said that he would definitely like to cash in that rematch clause that was agreed upon with both teams when this fight came about. And Errol Spence said in the post-fight interview that he would like to have this fight happen at the end of the year. And he wants this fight to be fought at super welterweight. And Errol Spence has talked about to the public that his frame suits super welterweight more than his frame does at welterweight. Now, I don't know if Terence Crawford, a fighter who started his career at lightweight, would be interested in having this rematch at super welterweight instead of welterweight when he just became the undisputed welterweight champion. And they did say in the post-fight interview that it would not be up to the winner. It would be, in fact, up to the loser of the fight, in this case, which would be Errol Spence. And he had said publicly that he has interest in yet having another fight with Terence Crawford. And as I said, Terence Crawford did also say that he has no issues, no problems at having another fight with Errol Spence. Now, Me personally, after seeing how this fight went, I'm not interested in seeing a rematch with these two fighters because of how one-sided this fight was. Terence Crawford did definitely show tonight that he was the better fighter, and he's on a whole nother level. He is a level above Errol Spence. He showed that in every aspect of the game in this fight, and that's why I'm not interested in seeing another fight. Now, I don't know how the box office number is going to look. I'm quite sure that it will come out as a successful event, and I would predict, and I would strongly predict that this would do over 1 million buys on pay-per-view. And because of how this fight went tonight, I don't know if the second fight will have the same turnout as tonight. Anyways, what are y'all opinions on how this fight went tonight with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence? And do y'all want to see a rematch with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, and an immediate one at that? They're saying that they want this rematch to happen at the end of the year, probably December of this year. We'll see a second fight with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. Don't know what weight class that they're going to fight at. And who would y'all like to see, other than Errol Spence, Terence Crawford defend his undisputed welterweight titles against? He is a newly crowned undisputed welterweight champion. The first fighter that comes to mind, I would say, is Jerron Boots Ennis, after he fights another fighter of a higher quality, and after one or two more fights that Jerron Ennis gets, and depending on how he looks in his next one or two more fights versus a higher level opponent than all his other previous opponents, then I'll say Jerron Ennis may be ready to challenge for the undisputed welterweight titles. And I say Virgil Ortiz, he would have to work off that ring rust. He's been inactive for over a year. After he gets 2 or 3 more fights, then I'll say Virgil Ortiz, he can be in the talks to potentially challenge for the undisputed welterweight titles as well. And Terence Crawford, another criticism that he's been faced with prior to this performance is the fact that he's showing inability to be a huge draw in this fight. Terence Crawford isn't the most marketable name in the sport of boxing. However, I would say after this performance, after this fight of this magnitude and the way he won this fight, I would definitely say his name has climbed up above many fighters, and I say he should be up there as one of the lead draws in the sport of boxing, especially after tonight. And if he does have a immediate rematch versus Errol Spence, which I think will happen next for both fighters, and then depending on how the second fight goes, then Terence Crawford, if he is successful at defending his newly won undisputed welterweight titles versus Errol Spence in the second fight, if that is in fact the next fight for both fighters, then he could defend that undisputed welterweight title versus any recognizable name at welterweight, and that can draw. And as for Errol Spence, I'd say the best move for him after the rematch, or if he doesn't go for the rematch, which, as I said, I think he will, and I think that's going to be, as I said, the next fight for both fighters, the best move would be for him to start fresh as super welterweight. And as for Terence Crawford, I think the best move for him is to continue defending his undisputed welterweight titles at welterweight. And that does it for this post-fight video. As I said, y'all let me know what y'all opinions are. comment, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And to support this channel, click the links in the description. To follow me on other platforms, click the links in the description as well. And I'm out of here, y'all. Peace.